cognitive distortions. Oh boy, that's like all or nothing thinking. That's labeling. That's this narrative that you have on how you see things. So that's the thought of distortion. And that is what we're going to talk about today. Welcome to episode 97 of the Positivity Experience, Cognitive Distortions and All or Nothing Thinking. Check it out. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to episode 97 of the Positivity Experience. It's your girl, Lori, and we are going to be talking about cognitive distortions. Oh boy, that's like a huge part of my profession. And it is something that I talk to my clients really every single day. Everybody has these cognitive distortions, and I thought now might be a really good time to talk to you guys about them. First and foremost, I want to let you guys know that over on the Patreon, if you're a Patreon subscriber, we are talking about self-sabotage. So if you're a Patreon member, this week's podcast there is on self-sabotage. If you would like to become a Patreon, you can do so at patreon.com/the Positivity Experience, or you can just click the link anywhere you get the show. There's going to be a description of what this week's show is. You can just click right on it. There's two different tiers. One tier gives you access to a Facebook group too, where you can also make recommendations for or requests for different episodes. And that's like a really cool thing. And but yeah, so welcome all of the new Patreons over there. And you have a whole thing on self-sabotage. So, but now we are here and I want to talk to you about it. And I want to talk to you about, oh boy, this all or nothing thinking. This is going to get you in trouble. And this is like a cognitive distortion on the highest levels. Okay, so it's a mental filter. So let's think of what a distortion. So it's like you ever go to, oh God, I'm going to date myself here, but we used to go to like this mirror maze, where you got to try to find your way out and whatever. And some of the mirrors were distorted. So it's kind of like if you have body dysmorphia, it's a distorted image of how you see yourself. Well, you have that mental filter. So when you're seeing things, it's distorted across the board. So you're looking at it. And this is that like all or nothing thinking, which is very problematic. And it's like, your biases, it's like, oh, okay, everything is like always, never, it's catastrophizing, it's all of those things, right? So it's fueling you and then it's making you feel bad about yourself. And then in turn, you're like, oh my God, okay, well, this is what it is. This is, this is just how it is. This is how it's always going to be. And that's why I want to talk to you about black and white thinking. Right? So this is a trap. This is your mental loop. And if you're looking at it in one extreme or the other, this goes into, and I kind of picked up on it over in the self-sabotage Patreon this week, because that is a self-sabotaging behavior in like the biggest level. So if you're looking at all or nothing, now you're going into this perfectionism, which we've talked about before. Perfectionism is false, it is fake, and it is rooted in insecurity. There's not a book. When you are born, you do not get a book that goes, okay, you must live this way. This is what you must accomplish, and this is how you have to do it. And that's how we live a perfect life. Yet you don't get that book because it's not real. Because your version of perfection, my version of perfection is going to be vastly different, right? And if you're constantly people pleasing, which we're going to have a whole different podcast on, but if we're in that fawn response of people pleasing, well, guess what? Now you're going to go into, well, if I can't do it right, I might as well not do it at all. That's a fake. Because now we go into feeling that you can't fail at something, feeling that you can't make a mistake because you were made to feel bad about it, or you were told you can't do it if you're not doing it at 100%. Listen, all sounds great. And I know from some people aren't doing it to be like manipulative or even gaslighty. They're trying to help you. But the reality is failure is beautiful. Oh my God, it's such a beautiful thing. And you can't have sustainable success without failures and mistakes. You just can't do it. So you have to accept that in turn. So now if you go into it and you're like, okay, I'm either going to give this 100% or no percent, that's self-sabotaging, and you're never going to achieve a goal, right? That's why those micro goals come into play. Head over to episode 37. I have an updated one coming anyway, but go to episode 37. You'll see all about these micro goals. So if you're looking at, I got to do it all the way or I'm not doing it at all, that's a problem. And it's a huge distortion. And it's not even your voice, right? So you want to start analyzing that distortion. Why? We have to know the root cause, right? Where does that come from? Well, I don't know. Well, I know you don't know. That's why I'm asking you to research it. That's what I do with my clients, right? It's like you got to dig deep. You got to start going to the root. You don't get to blame anybody. You got to know the why. So you this way you can have a reason, but be careful of letting it become an excuse. Well, I'm this way because of, we are not doing that, because now we're going into victim mentality, hard pass. Okay, so when you start looking at black and white thinking and you're either all in or all out, you are going to constantly be in this loop of misery, and you're going to constantly be in this loop of expectations of others and of self, and this is going to become problematic, right? So when you're looking at it and you're going, okay, going into this cognitive distortion and all or nothing thinking, this goes into catastrophizing. Apparently I'm speaking with a different dialect. You're catastrophizing. All or nothing thinking is always and never. That's nonsense. So you have to start monitoring how you are talking to yourself and the language in which you're using towards you and everybody else. Well, this always happens to me. Well, nothing ever goes my way. What? Of course it doesn't. With that attitude, it's going to remain that way. That's going to remain that way. Now you go into victim mentality. So now not only are you in a cognitive distortion, now you've incorporated ego and victim mentality to make one big unhappy storm. And those things, unfortunately, are pretty married, right? So this is why you have to be very careful when you constantly go through catastrophe. What if it doesn't work? So what? What if I fail? Good. Great. That's amazing. Now you know what works, what doesn't work. Everybody starts off as a noob, everybody. We don't just wake up one day and just have all this knowledge. Everybody starts at zero. And it's the journey. To catastrophize and to feel as though you don't want to deal with your past. Like, you guys know I do exposure with my clients, meaning the most painful things, we will go back and we will live every second of it mentally. Obviously, sometimes you can't just go back to it. And we will live it and relive it again. So you have the different tools now, and you don't rewrite history and say, I wish this never happened. You accept that it did, and you know that you're safe now, and then you can release the tie in which you have. Versus, well, this will never happen for me. Yep, you're right. Whether you believe you can or you cannot, you are 100% correct. So your catastrophizing, your catastrophic thinking is going to get you in trouble, because always and never is black and white thinking. To say no one likes you. Well, a lot of people don't even know you, number one. And because they're not like reaching out to you first. Because they're not like trying to see you on this journey. Like, remember, they don't have to hold your hand through things. So stop with saying always and never and then putting that on everybody else. Stop saying, if this would happen, I would be happy. If I would have this family. No. Now you're just moving the goalpost. And that's that overgeneralization, right? Always, never, always, never. I can't. I won't. The reality is a lot of times you just don't want to do it. You say you can't, you just don't want to. Now, the other piece of that goes into that all or nothing thinking are those should statements that you keep making to yourself. I should lose weight. I should declutter. I mean, we all use them, and that's fine. If you're like, I should do that. Okay. Do I have a goal for it? Is it important to me? Okay. Well, then what's my plan? Because remember, you can't have some plan in your head, or just because you make a list or 57 stickies around the place, that doesn't mean anything. You're just writing things. If you don't have an intention, if you're not mindful and you're not setting an intention without allowing yourself to go, woe is me, and look for some weird non-existent motivation that's fake. So that's what I'm saying. That all or nothing thinking, where the happy, quote unquote, happy lives, peace lives, is in the gray. That is where it lives. It doesn't live in black and white. It lives in the gray. So again, I've used this multiple times, and I'm a big football fan, so I'm going to use it again just because it's important here. Imagine you're going to be a football player. You decide, you know what, I'm going to wake up one day, when you're 7 years old, you decide you're going to go to the NFL. Okay, well, that's great. But if you're like, okay, I'm this is all I'm doing, I'm definitely going to get to okay, that's great to have that motivation. Now, at 7, you don't know this, but let's say at 27. Well, let's take that out because that might be a little older. Let's say at like 19, 15, 13. Okay, you go, wow. Okay, well, if I want to make it to the NFL, if I even have a minuscule possibility of making it there, I'm going to have to see what I need to do to get there. So that means you're going to have to practice. You're going to have to get hurt. You're going to have to fall. You're going to have to fail. You're going to have to get up. You're going to have to get cut, like from the team. You're going to have to keep trying. You're going to have to work on the educational piece of it. You're going to have to learn to read plays. You're going to have to understand that you're not always going to be the first pick. You're going to have to accept that, you know what, you're going to have wins. You're going to have losses. So from the door, if you just think that I'm going to keep doing this, and then if I don't make the NFL for somehow you're some big giant failure, or you know what, it's too hard. It's too much. That's just too much. Okay, that's a you issue. That goes into sabotage. So you have to understand, in football, somebody wins the Super Bowl. Super Bowl's great. That's what everybody would like. But you know what? The Super Bowl is not the reward. I mean, it's a temporary reward, right? You're like, great. You get a piece of jewelry. You get to go to Disney. If you're the MVP, you get a car. You know, your salary might go up on your next signing. That's great. But that's not the win. The win is the success that you see from the journey. You're in Pop Warner football. Maybe you're in Flag 2. Now you're getting into high school. Now, hopefully you get chosen. Now, let's say you get chosen for the team. Now you're playing your high school year. Sometimes you're getting benched. Sometimes you're getting hurt. This is happening. Now you go to college. Now you're playing in college. Now somebody takes interest in you at the draft. Now they draft you. That doesn't mean that, unless you're like number one Super Bowl, that's fine. But here's the thing. You still got to show and prove. Just because you get drafted, you better hope damn well that you make it through training camp. Preseason, baby. If you're not performing, you ain't staying. You can go on practice roster, and that's still okay. But now you've made it, and guess what? You ain't going to win every game. You're not going to play every game. They're not going to choose you every single game. And every year, somebody's going to be disappointed when they get knocked out of the series before they're even in playoffs. And they're going to keep going. But if people have all or nothing thinking, and they happen to make it there, and the first year they get to or they don't even get to the Super Bowl, and they go, well, this sucks. Whatever, I'm out. What? That you can't have all or nothing thinking and think you're going to declutter a house and think that you're going to lose 20 pounds and think that you're going to get your life together and then refuse to do the work. If you refuse to do the work, then you're refusing to have that long-term success. The baby steps are the success. The destination is just a marker to say, oh, okay, I reached this point. But if you're not married to the journey, that's gray. The journey is gray. So if you're stuck in a cognitive distortion of catastrophizing, well, what if it doesn't work? Okay, so it doesn't. So what? Okay. Are you going to sit there and not take a risk and not take a chance on yourself? Why? You want everybody else to step up and everybody else to love you and everybody else to support you. You're not doing it. That's a massive hypocritical statement for you. I want these people. I need these people. No, you don't. That goes into codependency. That goes into ego. Nobody needs to do anything for you as far as making you feel good about yourself. That's your job. Now, if somebody's not making you feel good about yourself, that's where you distance. That's why those boundaries are in play. And so this is the important factor of that, right? Because if you aren't willing to stand up and look in the mirror, no matter what you look like, no matter what's the number on the scale, no matter what gray hair you got, if you're not willing to do that and show up for yourself, stop expecting other people to do it for you. Don't get mad at somebody because they didn't call you 3 times in the day and because you're insecure over a relationship that you had and you didn't heal that, but you decided to get into another relationship without healing it. And now you're bringing in your past trauma into a new relationship and expecting that person to fix it. Hard pass. No, that is not okay. That's where you want to analyze it and then remove yourself from that relationship and heal the stuff so you're not going into another relationship with this old thought pattern. Because now you're catastrophizing. Well, all men are bad. All women are bad. All people are bad. No, that's not true. No, everybody is not all good. Everybody is not all bad. It is what it is. So if you keep going in, right? Like if you keep going in and you keep expecting people to show up for you and do all of these things, and then you're not showing up for yourself and you're not holding consistency, 28 consistent days, that means 28 days in a row, starts to form a habit. 120 days in a row, it becomes a way of life. And see, so that's the biggest thing for you. And the moment you could have 50 different amazing things happen to you this week. And one thing, not so amazing. What do? You don't even focus on all those amazing things. You focus on the thing. You stay focused on the one thing that maybe was negative. And then you start jumping to conclusions. Well, yeah, I know how this works. Yeah, I've seen this before. Okay, really? All or nothing thinking, cognitive distortion. That's why the should statements you have to be very careful of. I should do this. You should do this. No. Again, stop doing things and trying to understand everybody else's why. See, you say you want to understand their why so you can understand them. No, you don't. You're looking at it and to know it's not you, number one. And then number two, if it doesn't work for you, you go, that's weird. You don't have to understand it. It's not their job to tell you. So stop saying what they should do. And I think that's a big trap that you're getting yourself into, right? If you're doing the all or nothing and you're discounting the amazing positive things, there are so many free, priceless things on this planet. Matter of fact, today I decorated for Christmas. That's right. I'm early. Don't care. It makes me happy. It's all that matters. And so I've been decorating for Christmas and I needed more like ornament, the ornament hooks. And coming back, I had a plan. I was like, okay, well, I want to finish getting this done in the kitchen. And I was like, you know what? It's nice out. I'm going to stop over by the wharf area and I'm just going to lay out on the dock. And I did. Because I have gratitude. See, all or nothing thinking will start to dissipate when you start staying mindful. You start putting yourself as a priority. You start setting in boundaries. You start accepting that failure is beautiful, mistakes are great, and the unknown is where every opportunity that you will ever have will exist. If you're resistant to that, that's that all or nothing cognitive distortion. And then, like I said, jump into conclusions. Oh gosh, that will definitely, that will get to you. I know because now you start becoming Steven Spielberg and you start creating scenarios in your head and you play out these literal scenarios. And now somebody calls you and now you're pissed off and they're like, what's wrong with you? Nothing. Nothing. Wow. Yeah. I know what you were doing. What? Like you just created a whole narrative in your head. And you have to understand that when you have the positive attributes and unless you can see them, again, stop expecting people to show up for you and to be supportive of you when you're not doing it to yourself. No. It has to start with you. And that all or nothing is never going to serve your best and highest good. And this means you're going to have to lower your ego. Go out to my YouTube, The Positivity Xperience, go under playlist. There's 5 episodes of the Ego Death series. It'll really help you as you're battling with your ego. Right? And so, like I said, if you're doing the whole, should or must or better or do and all of these things, watch the language. Now, some of those extremes are just kind of like, they've become part of your mental thinking. So it's about rewriting it. So you have to unlearn it, which I have a whole podcast coming up on like unlearning things, because a lot of times to know who you are is to know who you are not, right? And so and you have to understand like, and this is it. You are the toxic person if you're having all or nothing thinking. That's right. So if you're like, oh, somebody call me toxic. Well, are you all or nothing thinking? Well, birds of a feather, baby. Some birds of a feather. If the shoe fits, then you got to like own it. They're not being negative. They're not, some people, every time if somebody says that you're toxic, there's a good chance they're toxic to you and you're toxic to them. So if you know somebody in your life, you're like, oh my God, they're toxic. Okay, well, then you're probably toxic to them and it's best that you guys separate. It's kind of like saying, well, I can't do this. I can't. No. You're not trying to do it. There's certain things you can't do. I can't at 51 years old as a 5'3" woman join the NFL. You're right. I can't do that. However, if I was that much in love with football, I could get a job doing something in the NFL league. I could have studied like PT, like physical therapy, like sports medicine. I could have done that and still been involved with it. So yeah, you can have an affiliation with it if you're seeking for that. See, all or nothing thinking, you're still chasing something to make you happy. You're still chasing for something to make you whole. But see, that's not real. Nothing is going to make you whole until you're whole within yourself. Listen, things can make you feel good. Things can make you feel bad. But at the end of the day, it's you. You are in charge of this. But not in an all or nothing thinking you're not. Right? Because literally, think about how many times you say to yourself, God, this will never happen. Ugh, this always happens. Ugh, I can't rely on anybody. Whoa, you talk about overgeneralization on the highest level. I can't rely on anybody but myself. That is the biggest trauma response I've ever heard. I didn't say don't be your first priority. You must always be your first priority. You do not need to be anybody else's first priority, but you do need to be yours. But to say you can't rely on anybody, that means that you are expecting them to somehow or another fix your issues, and that is not their job. So when somebody says, I can't rely on anybody, I understand that they're in a trauma response and that they don't know how to kind of rely upon themselves in many ways, emotionally I speak of, right? And how they're saying that, and then often that leads into a victim mentality because a person isn't making you feel some sort of way because they're not showing up for you in a certain way. But again, if you're not showing up for yourself, why the hell should anybody else show up for you? Because now we go into codependency, we go into a bunch of different things. So when you're focusing in that all or nothing and you catch yourself saying it, it's always a good little, it's a fun little exercise I like to do, is have a little sticky note, like a little thing of sticky notes or a little small pad. And every time don't worry about other people, this is about you. Every time you can hear yourself in your brain go always, never, can't, and you start you can hear yourself kind of doing these overgeneralizations and you're feeling some kind of way, just do a tally mark, right? This isn't to judge it. I don't care if you're like, I have 8 million tally marks. That's fine. But I want you to understand that this now becomes what we call a normal thought pattern for you. I didn't say it's healthy. I said it becomes normal, whatever that is. But the normal thought pattern of you, it's an automatic thinking. So your brain automatically goes to the glass is half empty. Everything is always a never and can't and woe is me. Everything goes there. Well, yes, that's because that's how your brain is programmed now. You've programmed it that way. So in order to do that, you can't do that on your own. Stop thinking you're going to get 3 self-help books and suddenly you're fixed. Not going to happen. That's all or nothing thinking. Your journey will be for the rest of your natural born life. You will have to constantly make a conscious daily effort to put you as a priority every single day. Every single day, you have to mindfully be prepared for it. At some point, there are a lot of things that become automatic. That's where we start to create the routines. That's where we start creating different mantras and we start, doing things that are really going to move the needle forward. But guess what? You don't get there overnight. And there isn't one therapy, there isn't one book, there isn't one podcast, there isn't one pill, there isn't one dollar sign, there isn't one follower account that is going to fix you. Hard pass. Nope, not happening. So you have to understand, I am a tool on your journey. I am a person, I call myself Glenda the Good Witch. I teach you how to deal with the flying monkeys. I give you the tools that you need. So on your yellow brick road journey, as you encounter these things, you're more prepared for them. But I'm not fixing anything and I'm not going to drag you along with it, right? I'm not going to force anything upon you, right? I will give you the tools. I will not call you every day and say, are you using these tools? But I will say, if you're in a session with me and you go, yeah, I don't know. And I go, okay, well, how many times did you do the journals last week? And you're like, well, I did them once. Okay, well, then you know what you need to do. I mean, I'm not going to ridicule you. I'm not going to blame you. I'm not going to ever get mad at you. There's not a negative. It's like, okay, that's fine. So let's go back and let's try to incorporate it. I'll try to give you another tool that you can use to really allow that. But at the end of the day, it always falls on you, right? If a doctor gives you medicine for diabetes or migraines, whatever, anything, and you decide, I don't want to take medicine. Okay, you have that right to do. And then if you go, oh my God, I don't know why it's bothering me so bad. Okay, well, nobody wants to keep hearing it. You've made a decision, so don't put it on everybody else. That's fine. You have that right to do whatever you choose to do. That's right. You do. That's amazing. It's what makes us humans. But you don't get to not do something and then bellyache about the result of not doing something, even if your insecurity of all or nothing thinking and cognitive distortion is rearing its ugly head. It's still yours to process. Remember, You can have every tool in the book. If someone gave you the holy grail of life, perfect way of life, and you saw it and you didn't use it, it's not anybody else's issue. It's yours. And it's not a blame game. It's not about blaming you to make you feel bad. It's about putting that onus back on you. It is empowering. You have to understand, when you own your stuff, people can't use it against you. Let them try, because you won't care. Oh, you used to do this? Yes. You did this? I did. When you own your stuff, it gives you power for yourself, not power over other people, power for self. So, but you know where you find that, right? In that gray area. There's 100,000 shades of gray. Pick a few. Live there. But so you don't want to ridicule yourself. You don't want to judge yourself, because now you're going to go into feeling like a victim in your own mentality, and you can't do that either. But you do have to be aware that if you can see the tools and somebody says, here's the tools to life, a happy life, and you don't use them, and then you get mad at yourself from doing it, now we're going to sabotage, and now we're going into definitely a cognitive distorted way of thinking. If you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop, you're always living in prep mode, yeah, that's sabotage. We talk about that over on Patreon. And you have to understand, by doing that, no one else cares that you're doing this. No one else is bothered if you don't make your goals. No one is going to hold your hand and show up for you when you're not showing up for yourself. That's just the facts. So you have to ask yourself, are you tired of your own stuff? Do you want to feel better? And I asked, do you want to? Because that means you may have to distance from the relationship you have. You might have to get a divorce. You might choose to get a divorce. You might not talk to your mom again. You might have to quit the job that you have. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to embrace the unknown? Are you willing to live in the gray? Because if you're not willing to embrace the unknown and you're not willing to live in the gray, then you're going to stay in cognitive distortion. If you're not willing to do those 5 journals, if you're not willing to show up for yourself, if you're not willing to show up for you even when you can barely open your eyes, show up for yourself. You have to remember, you're a resilient human being. You're a beautiful person. Don't let the voice of the unhealed trauma of people before you who were raising you or who you encountered ever have you doubt that. Because they're not doing it, you're giving them that tool. Now, as a kid, you don't really know any better. But as an adult, you're here now. As an adult, you're here now. If you don't have the tools, great. Book a session with me. I got you. Let's do this. But you must be willing to do it. And you must be willing to make the commitment to yourself. See, you worry about these boundaries of everybody else. You worry about how everybody's actions are. But yet, you're not checking yourself. You're overstepping your boundaries left and right. If you're putting everybody else's needs in front of yours, guess who's overstepping the boundary? Not them. Not them. You are. You're not holding your time boundaries. You're not looking in the mirror and understanding that the person in staring back at you is the person that you're going to live 100% of your life with. Nobody else on the planet. No kid, no parent, no spouse, no pet. But you will you. And when you get there, then you have to look into the world of the unknown, unlock the idea that you need to not fail, and get rid of that. That's garbage. Throw that in the trash. You're supposed to fail. You're supposed to try new things. Oh, this worked. This didn't work. Cool. Great. That's called knowledge. There's a massive difference between book knowledge and street knowledge. I promise you that. They're both great, but they're very different. And so you want to not just read books and just have an education and go, okay, this is it, because the street knowledge is going to carry you so much further emotionally and mentally. So you want to be, and how you're going to get that is you're going to try new things. You're going to put yourself out there. You're going to try a new hobby. You're going to put yourself as a priority. You're going to understand that not only is it okay to fail, embrace it. Not only is it okay for you to not know if something good or bad is going to happen, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. If you're resistant to that, now we go into sabotage. Now that's where we're sabotaging. But always check yourself and say, am I showing up for me today? Am I mad at everybody else because they didn't check in on me, or they didn't call me, or they didn't do these things, but yet I'm not showing up for myself? I'm not putting myself as a priority because I'm not living in the gray area. I'm not micro-goaling. I'm not setting plans into action. I'm not micro-goaling them. I'm not understanding that I'm going to have to do things even when I don't feel like doing them. Am I doing that? See, you have to, and it's don't ever feel bad about it. It's acknowledgement. So you have to understand you're not doing it as self-loathing and like, what's wrong with you? You're terrible. That's not what I mean. You're doing it to check yourself to say, okay, what areas do I need to work on? And you lean into what your shortcomings are. You always want to lean into your shortcomings. You know, like I said, my OCD says, my OCD and my ADHD says to me, you know that if something's downstairs and you need it, like my journals, I'm going to need a whole set upstairs. You lean into your weaknesses. You embrace those weaknesses. You don't get mad at them. You don't get mad at your depression. You don't get mad at your diagnoses. You don't get mad at your anxiety. You embrace it. You're okay, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for me to do this. So let me set myself up for success. Let me set myself up for success. Not let everybody else set me up for success. So that's the wrap on all or nothing and cognitive distortions, baby. You're not supposed to just do it all the way perfect. And don't just not do it because it's hard. So what? Life's hard. You have productive hard, you have unproductive hard. If you're waiting for it to be easy, you're going to stay stuck. And you're going to stay very lonely. You're going to have expectations. You're going to have codependent relationships. Because you are looking at it as all or nothing. Like you need that instant dopamine hit. When you do the micro goals, you'll get little bits of dopamine. Because you're achieving little tiny things. But guess where that lives? It lives in the gray, baby. It for certainly doesn't live in black and white. And black and white will never serve you because that all or nothing thinking is like sitting in a rocking chair and rocking. It's giving you something to do, but you ain't going anywhere, baby. Check it out.